Chapter 18, Mark of the Assassin. It's amazing how Furies can blend into the shadows without making a sound. Their skull masks are the mark of the assassin, that and the black daggers. I've heard about Furies, of course, but never seen one. Supposedly they have to be female, not that you can tell the female part, it could be anybody or anything inside the hooded black capes. They say Furies are so cunning and stealthy, their victims die without uttering a sound. All I can do is hold tight to Littleface and hope that Lanaya knows what she's doing. "Greetings," she says quietly as the Furies move silently around her. "We bring offerings to Vita Bleek." My heart clenches when she speaks that name. Vita Bleek is boss of the underworld traders and in his own way as powerful as the Latch Queen. He deals in all things stolen or forbidden, and nobody gets the best of him and lives to brag about it. I can tell Ryder has heard of Bleek, too, because his eyes are as big as Targa stones. We look at each other, but we don't dare speak, afraid that the wrong word will trigger the Furies. Lanaya has no such fear. "I'm a child of Eden," she says, ignoring the daggers that dance beneath her elegant nose. "Tell Bleek I must see him on a matter of great urgency." Notice she doesn't say please, not even to dagger-waving assassins. My brain tells me the Prove girl is maddeningly stupid to taunt the Furies, but my heart thinks she's also incredibly brave, braver than I'll ever be. "Quickly," Lanaya demands. "We haven't got all day." That's it, I'm thinking, and I'm hoping the daggers are sharp and true so we won't suffer much. And then before I can let out the breath I've been holding, the Furies seem to vanish and a small, hairless figure emerges from the darkness. "Offerings?" the small man asks. "Did I hear the word offerings? What have you brought me besides your lives?" Vita Bleek stands with his tiny arms folded across his chest, looking up at Lanaya with an expression of curiosity. As if he's discovered a rare gemstone he'd just love to pluck from its setting. The only big thing about him is his eyes, which seem to blaze with intelligence and cunning. Lanaya is at least twice as tall as Bleek, but he doesn't seem to mind. How big you are doesn't matter when you have the Furies at your command. "Whatever it takes," Lanaya tells him. "That's what I bring." "You're rich," he says with a shrug, "but then all Proves are rich. What is it you want, exactly?" Lanaya taps a finger against her forehead. "Probes," she says. "Mind probes." Bleek's teeth are small, too, when he smiles. There's nothing friendly about the smile, though. It's a smile that wants to chew you into little bits. You can almost hear his mind whirling as he tries to figure an advantage. Behind him, the Furies blend themselves into the darkness, waiting for his command as silent as eternity. "Probing has been forbidden in this latch," he says, as if making idle conversation. "You must know that." "Many things are forbidden," Lanaya says. "That just makes them more valuable." "Not every forbidden thing carries the sentence of death," Bleek says, rubbing a hand over his hairless head. "Do you know what happened to the last mope who said probe to me?" "I'm not a mope," Lanaya reminds him. "I'm a child of Eden." "Yeah," goes Bleek, sounding unimpressed. "But what makes you think Proves are invulnerable? If you cut a Prove, does she not bleed, Tell you what, child of Eden, we'll have a sit-down. I'll do that much for you. Step into my office." We follow him into a shack. The only light inside the shack is a single candle that barely pushes the shadows back. I figure a man as powerful as Vita Bleek would live in splendor, but everything is plain and unadorned. The walls are bare. The rug on the floor is worn thin. If Bleek has anything to trade, and he must, he doesn't keep it here. Then I realize this isn't really his office. It's just a place of convenience, the nearest shack. He figures we're not worthy enough to need impressing. Bleek settles himself on the rug and bids us to do the same. After we sit, several of the Furies glide in, hugging the walls. Once they've stopped moving, they remain as still as hooded statues. I'm so scared of them, I don't even want to know what they look like under their skull masks. "What have we here?" Bleek asks, indicating me and Ryder and Littleface. "Is this your idea of an escort?" "These are my friends," Lanaya says, and tells him our names. "Spaz," Bleek says, looking directly at me. "I remember that name. You were banned from this latch, were you not? And now you return in the company of an old man, a boy, and a Prove? Very strange. What is your explanation?" I try to shrug as casually as possible, like traveling from latch to latch is no big deal. I, wanted to visit my family unit, I tell him. Bleek seems to find my explanation amusing. Just drop in and say hello. Something like that. His small teeth shape themselves into a grin. Feel free to lie, boy. I often find lies more interesting than the truth. They say more about the liar. And you, old man, what of you? Ryder spreads his hands. They tremble a little, but not as much as my own. One last adventure, he says. One last chance to see the world before the lights go out. Bleek nods and then turns to Lanaya. The most interesting lie remains yours, he tells her. You pretend an interest in probes, and yet I can see at a glance you've never experienced one. Therefore, you want information about probing for some other purpose. Treachery, no doubt. No, says Lanaya. Silence. The room seems to shrink as the Furies draw closer. Bleek's eyes blaze as if he's been lit from within by the candle. The light is cruel and angry. You proves have a weakness. You assume that all normals are ignorant. Do you think a man keeps a position like mine by being stupid? Let me tell you something, my fine young prove. I trade in more than forbidden things. I trade in information. And my information tells me you're here to please the Latch Queen by betraying the probe runner. Do you deny this? He asks quietly. Do you? Anaya shakes her head. Good, he says, satisfied. What you may not know is that for some reason the Latch Queen fears me. She thinks I want to get rid of her and take over the Latch myself. She has a point. Why should I pay her tribute, eh? When she does nothing for me, When my Furies can strike without warning. Tell me, who is feared more, the brutish, noisy vandals, or my silent, cunning assassins, Bleek doesn't expect an answer. He's telling us his plans because he's so pleased with himself, and because he knows it makes us afraid. Have I shocked you? He asks. Didn't know what you were getting into, did you? Anaya takes a deep breath and says, May we leave? Bleek laughs. It sounds like a series of little shrieks. Eek, eek, eek. Like he stores up all the pain he inflicts and uses it when he laughs. Leave, he says, but we're just becoming acquainted. But we still have to find the probe runner, Lanaya insists. Bleek shakes his small, deadly head. You don't get it, do you? Let me ask you this. Who brings us the probes and the equipment to use them? If I knew that, Lanaya begins. You know nothing. Probes. Who cares about probes? Not the Latch Queen. She doesn't really want to ban them. She just wants more tribute. But she said, Silence! The little man roars, his voice as sharp and cold and quick as a chetty blade. Are you really that stupid, Prove? Don't you know that you and probes both come from the same place? That's ridiculous, Lanaya says, flustered. No, all probes come from Eden. I don't believe it, says Lanaya. No, says Bleek, who seems pleased by her denial. Look around. Do you think we possess the technology to develop mind flicks or brain probes or the equipment to make them work? We who beg edibles from the likes of you? We who live in squalor and despair? We who risk our lives to jam needles into our brains so we can pretend to live in Eden until our minds burn out? Your ignorance is an insult. I don't care what that wretched Latch Queen says. You're too stupid to live. Bleek makes a small sign with his left hand, and the Furies advance, daggers raised. Wait, cries Ryder. That's when the air begins to move. The candle flickers out. Something big is coming, something big enough to make its own wind. My heart beats once, and then it washes over us. The earth-shaking roar of jet bikes, the screams of attacking vandals, the dull, ugly explosion of splat guns. The Furies vanish in an instant, taking Bleek with them. The walls of the shack split open, and the noise of the jet bike engines is so loud I can't think. Ryder tries to scream something, but I can't hear him. He grabs Little Face and runs through the opening in the walls. Lanaya tugs at me, and when I don't move, she slaps my face. That does it. I'm awake now, and following Lanaya, following her shimmering white gown. Around us, the world explodes. I bounce off the side of a jet bike, see the silent, screaming face of a Vandal warrior. One of the Furies clings to his back, dagger poised. I don't know what happens next because I'm running into the night, away from the insane roar of the battle, running for my life. Chapter 19. Spaz Boy melts in the acid rain. Traderville is deserted. The busy stalls have been emptied and boarded up. All that remains are a few metal storage cans some traitor must have dropped in his hurry to get away when the vandals roared through. A light rain falls from the dark sky and goes pip, pip, pip on the hollow cans. Pip, pip, pip. I'm standing there like a Guggen with the rain running down the back of my neck. My insides feel as hollow as those stupid empty cans, like I'm going pip, pip, pip inside because I was so scared. Too scared to move until the proof girl slapped me. Too scared to help anyone but myself. Too scared to do anything but run. Too scared even to think of Bean. No, that's a lie. That's really why I feel so hollow and miserable. I did think of Bean. But I was wishing she'd never sent for me, wishing I'd never come. Blaming her because we got ourselves stuck in the middle of a turf battle between the Latch Queen and her rival. Like it's Bean's fault I'm a rotten coward. So I'm standing out in the acid rain, letting the warm itch of it nibble at my skin, and thinking if it rains long enough, I'll dissolve and my problems will be over. Spaz boy melts. Good riddance. I'm thinking about opening my mouth and seeing if maybe I'll drown faster, when Ryder comes limping out of the rain. He's leaning on his walking stick pretty hard, holding himself up, and there's a lot of hurt in his ancient eyes. He gives me a tired old smile and says, "So, you made it. Good." Good for what? I'm thinking. You're hurt, I tell him. Just bruised, he says. Nothing serious. One of those horrible jet bikes knocked me down. They'll be the death of me someday, I suppose, but not today. What about the others? Lanaya and the boy have gone to get the takvi, he says. Then he looks at me, really looks at me, and goes, "What's wrong, son? Have you been wounded?" I say, says Ryder knowingly. You were scared and ran. So what? We all ran. There were too many of them and not enough of us. What else could we do? I shrug. This may work in our favor, Ryder says, trying to cheer me up. It's obvious the Latch Queen was just using us to get at Vita Bleek and his assassins. Distract him with us while she attacks. I doubt she really cares about the menace of mind probes. Or maybe she does, who knows. The point is, right now, she's got her hands full. She'll need all of her people fighting by her side. So the way is clear. I keep staring at the wet ground and go, huh? Like a major mope. Your family unit, says Ryder. Your sister. The Latch Queen can't spare the men to guard them, not with a battle going on. If I hadn't been feeling so low down, I'd have thought of that myself. The old man is right. We're almost there, with nothing to stop us if we hurry. Suddenly, I can't feel the rain. All I can feel is the need to see Bean. Be alive. I'm thinking, please be alive. I stayed alive for you. Now you can stay alive for me. A takvi is amazingly quiet for a heavily armored vehicle. Lanaya glides it up behind us, and the first thing we hear is her voice going, "Come on, quick!" And then, "Lanaya, chocks!" as Littleface chimes in. It turns out she's letting the kid pretend to drive the takvi. He's bouncing around at the console, giggling and making all sorts of explosive little kid noises. Probably stuff he picked up when the vandals attacked. And now it's all part of his pretend game, which is just as well. The proof girl asks me where my family unit lives exactly. When I tell her, she programs the takvi and we get underway. Ryder groans a little as he sits down, but waves off and he offers to help. "Fortunes of war," he mutters. "War and old age. I'll be fine. Wake me when we get there," he adds, and then falls deeply asleep, just like that. Sleep, after all we've been through. I don't know how he does it. My blood still feels electrified. Lanaya seems just as jumpy, as if she can barely stop herself from leaping out of the takvi and running on her own power. I want to tell her how brave she is, how perfect, but something inside me won't let me speak. Maybe because I don't want to remind her of how terrified I'd been when she slapped my face and saved my life. "Did you notice?" she asked me, her beautiful eyes glowing with excitement. "Did you see what happened?" I don't know what she's talking about and say so. "They could have canceled us, but they didn't," she whispers, so we won't wake Ryder. "The way those Furies fought, it was as if they were helping us get away. The Vandals, too. The only reason we're alive is because they wanted us to survive." "Because you're a proof?" "I don't know," she says, puzzled. "Maybe. But I think something else is going on. We were caught in the middle of a power struggle between the Latch Queen and an ambitious crime boss, right? We broke all the rules on both sides, but when they had a chance to cancel us, they didn't. And it wasn't just because I'm a proof." "Then why?" "I think it has something to do with you. The Latch Queen was expecting you. So was Vita Bleek. Excuse me, but why would they even be aware of some spastic nobody? Nobody? I say as my face gets hot. That's my point, silly, because you're not a nobody. You're important enough to attract the attention of all those powerful people. Billy Bismo, Lottie Getz, Vita Bleek. Why is that? I don't know, I tell her. I never thought about it. Maybe you should, Linnea says. Think about it, I mean. But there isn't room in my head right now for thinking about things I don't understand. There's only room for hoping that Bean will still be there and that she isn't as bad off as the runner made it sound. As we get closer, I start to recognize more and more of the old neighborhood. The cellar holes where we played hide or cancel, the stalls where we traded for edibles, the alleys where we chose up teams and pretended to be vandals fighting the invaders. There's nobody on the streets now, though. No enforcers, no kids going wild in the night, no frightened folk scuttling from door to door. They must be hunkered down inside their shelters, aware of the not-so-distant battle, not knowing if Lottie Getz and her gang will remain in power, or if Vita Bleek and his Furies will take over the latch. We're almost there, I say. Ryder wakes up. There's pain and worry in his bleary old eyes, but joy and triumph, too. He squeezes my shoulder. Are you ready for this, son? It may not be easy. My mouth feels like dry sand. I know. This is what I know. The only thing worse than finding Bean dead will be watching her die. Get ready for worse, Spaz Boy, my brain says. You of all people should know there's nothing so bad it can't get worse. Chapter 20. What Bean Believed. Once, when she was 4 years old, Bean decided she wanted to go to Eden. She didn't know it was a real place. She thought we could walk there with our eyes closed and just pretend. Walk me to Eden, she asked me. Please, please, please. So I took her hand and we walked out through the dark alley behind our building and then farther until I found a patch of sunshine among the ruins. Do you feel that? I said as the sun warmed our faces. That's Eden shining on us. Bean kept her eyes closed the whole time because she didn't want to spoil it. She never told Charlie or Kay because it was our secret. The bad thing is, from then on Bean thought I could do just about anything. I'd taken her to Eden, and so I could make it stop raining, or fix a boo-boo, or make Charlie and Kay stop fighting, or make her better when she got sick. All you have to do is close your eyes, she'd say. Make it happen, please. I wish I could close my eyes now, then I wouldn't see the bullet marks above the door of my family shelter, or the coils of cut wire blocking the entrance. The bullet marks and the cut wire have always been there, ever since I can remember, but they still make me sad. At first, nothing happens when I bang my fist on the door. Then an eye fills the peephole and Charlie unlocks and opens up. You, he says, sounding surprised. Not angry or disappointed, just surprised. A moment later, Kay, my foster mom, she comes running in. As soon as she sees me, her eyes fill with tears. She doesn't hug me or anything. Kay was never much for hugs. Instead, she hugs her own arms and says, Who are these people? She means Ryder and Littleface. These are my friends, I say, and introduce them. Littleface hides behind me, acting shy. Ryder gives a little bow, bending forward over his walking stick, and says, very formal, Pleased to meet you, madam. And then Linnea comes out from behind the door, and Charlie almost falls down. Oh, he says, oh. I don't know if Charlie has ever seen a Prove up close before, and it's like he doesn't want to see her now, or he's afraid to look but can't help staring. Probably he doesn't know what to think or how to act. I brought you some edibles, Linnea says, holding out a small bag. Kay takes the bag like it might explode. I've come to see Bean, I manage to say. Where is she? Our daughter is sick, Charlie mutters, very sick. She's been asking for you, Kay says, so softly she can barely be heard. I told her you couldn't come. I told her it was against the rules. Nobody tries to stop me as I cross the outer room and find the entrance to Bean's cubicle. When I draw back the curtain, my hands feel so light it's like they're not connected to my arms. At first I think she's not here because the mat on the floor looks empty, just a couple of scruffy old blankets, and then the blankets move and a skull-like face peeks out at me with big eyes sunk in dark circles. There are lumps on her neck from swollen glands. Spaz, Bean says, wheezing. I knew you'd come. I knew it. Then I'm kneeling beside the mat and pressing my wet face against her face, and I'm so glad she's alive. I don't care how bad she looks. She's still Bean inside. You can hear it in her voice. When I draw back to look at her again, she's so thin and pale and wasted away, it almost stops my heart. Oh, Bean, I say, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, she says. My dad said you couldn't come, and you know what? He sent for you anyhow. So Charlie had paid for the latch runner. I know he did it for Bean and not for me, but I don't care. I'm here, and that's all that matters. Later, Kay tells me the healer stopped coming 10 days ago. There's nothing more she can do. No one can stop the blood sickness. Bean takes her remedy, but it doesn't help. Ryder has settled his old bones on the floor, and he looks so peaceful it makes me feel better. The disease used to be called leukemia, he tells us, and I think they had real cures for it in the back times. What kind of cures? I demand. Ryder shakes his head. Sorry, son. I've no idea. The knowledge was lost long ago. Then why do you mention it? It's just back time or bull. That's all it is, I say, feeling cranked enough to hit someone. I'm not really mad at the old man. I'm mad at the blood sickness. I'm mad because there's nothing we can do except wait for the worst to happen. From Ryder's expression, you can tell he regrets mentioning the cure they supposedly had before the big shake ruined the world. He touches a hand to his lips as if to say, You're right, let me be silent. Lanaya looks at me and goes, May I see her? And so we go back into Bean's cubicle. She's asleep, but there's a smile on her face. When she hears us enter, her eyes open and then get wider. She stares at Lanaya and says in a hushed voice, You are so beautiful. I've never seen anyone so beautiful. You must be from Eden. That's my Bean, still sharper and smarter and quicker than anybody. Sick as she is, she glommed right away that Lanaya can't look so perfect and be a normal like the rest of us. That's right, Lanaya says, crouching by the mat. She puts her hand on Bean's forehead and says, Where does it hurt? It hurts everywhere, but only a little, Bean says almost cheerfully. Are you my brother's love mate? Lanaya laughs. No, we're not love mates. As a matter of fact, I don't think your brother likes me very much. He thinks I'm spoiled and headstrong and always gets my own way. Lanaya brought us here, I tell Bean. That makes up for everything else. Lanaya gives me a funny look, but I can tell she likes what I said, and it's obvious she likes Bean. Of course you can't help but like Bean. Even a proof can't help it. Bean and Lanaya talk for a while, girl talk kind of things, but they don't seem to mind that I'm listening, and every now and then Bean goes, Isn't that right, Spaz? Or Remember, Spaz? And tells a lot of funny stories about what a silly Guggen I used to be. Pretty soon I'm laughing along with her, and for some reason I'm even starting to think she doesn't look so bad. I'm thinking maybe the healer is wrong and she'll get better like she did that last time. I'll leave you with your big brother, Lanaya says, standing up. I'll go help your mom prepare some edibles. You need to eat, Bean. We need to fatten you up. I'm not hungry anymore, she says, and my heart sinks. When Lanaya is gone, Bean smiles at me and says, I think she likes you. You two should get married. Silly girl, I tell her. Proofs can't marry normals, and I'm not even a normal. You are too a normal. I'm a deef, I remind her. I've got a genetic defect, remember? Bean sighs and settles back on her mat. I hate that word, deef. It's just a word, I tell her. Kay told me you've been taking your remedy. Bean looks at me. It's only honey water and stuff to make it taste icky, she says. It doesn't do any good. But you're going to be okay, I tell her. Her skinny little hands reach out from under the blankets. They feel cool and dry and weak, like old people's hands. I'm glad you came, she says. I was afraid you'd never see me again, and the last thing you'd remember was me fighting with Dad and those names he called me. You mustn't hate him, Spaz. He can't help what he did. I don't hate him, I say. I don't hate anybody. You're going to get better, Bean. You have to. Sure, I'll get better, Bean says, but she doesn't believe it, and neither do I. Remember how you used to tell me stories so I take my remedy? I remember. Tell me a story, Spaz. Tell me a story where everybody lives happily ever after. So I tell her stories until she falls asleep.